grab a seat. We're gonna get started in just a minute. I am Gwen Markham. I am one of the 2 county commissioners for Novi. This is a program that's being sponsored and brought to you by the Oakland County Office of Sustainability. And I'm here to learn as much as you all, I think, about solar and bringing solar to our community. So thanks for coming out tonight. If you have any questions later, I'm sure there's going to be a Q&A, and I'm going to hand it over to the folks whose program this is.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I even wore my shirt.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to event 2 of Oakland County Solarize. We're very happy you're here. I'm going to make one last request that you all sign in via this QR code. Just scan it with your phone and it will take you to a Google form. If you have any issues with that, please let me know and I will just get your contact info separately. But this is to make sure that we can send out all your materials after the event. So no need to take pictures or take super thorough notes. You'll be getting everything. And we have a pretty stacked agenda tonight. We have quite a few different speakers that are going to walk you through the different aspects of going solar and figure out how it could work for your business, nonprofit, place of worship, school, local unit of government, or other entity. I should just introduce myself. I'm Lexi Krilling with the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association. I'm a Solarize coordinator, so please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about what we go over today, or GLREA in general, or anything solar. A little bit of background about GLREA. We are a 501c3 nonprofit that has been working in Michigan for over 30 years to make renewable energy more accessible. We do this through programs like Solarize and also legislative advocacy, educational work, and similar initiatives. And you all probably know a little bit about Solarize, hence why you're here today. But essentially, this presentation will go over the financial, environmental, and technical aspects of solar, help you figure out if it's right for you, and then offer a discount to help make it a little more accessible for your group or business, etc. And we're hoping to get you at least 45% off of your solar if we do reach that 15% discount, which we'll explain a little bit towards the end as our group buy model. But we'll also walk you through some federal incentives that are still remaining to help bring down the cost and make sure you get either tax credits or elective pay. We've had a pretty successful run for Solarize so far. We've had 53 events throughout the state. That has resulted in 185 solar systems installed, and over a megawatt of capacity at the very low end of our estimates. It has also saved participants over $3,500,000. And we've had Solarize throughout the state. As you can see, this is event 2 of an 8-part series for Oakland County. So definitely stay tuned and talk about it. And we'll have 6 more events that either you can revisit or you can invite others to. And then the last thing I'll say before handing it off to Oakland County is that while GLREA is a nonprofit and of course does not benefit financially from these events, we care a lot about it for a couple of reasons, one of which being this graph on your left, and that is the rise in global average surface temperature due to climate change. I won't talk about this too much, but as you probably know, we're in a pretty dire spot and want to do everything we can to decarbonize. And then that graph on the right is the rise in utility bills for DTE and Consumers Energy, Michigan's 2 big utilities. As you can see, rates just keep increasing and they're projected to do so at an even more drastic rate over the next couple of years. So with all that being said, we encourage you to go solar to save money, save emissions, and contribute to the just energy transition. A couple other things, just if you'd like to explore GLREA on your own time. We have a Michigan Solar Communities Guidebook, which is a really robust document showing everything you need to know about solar in Michigan, and other tools to help connect you with people who can educate and inspire with the renewable energy transition. So if you're interested in learning more, please consider becoming a member at our website. And now I'll hand it off to Nicole. Thank you.
I'm going to try to clip this. You'll see. Okay.
All right, I feel like that's working. Thanks, Lexi. And thank you all for coming out tonight to learn about solar. I hope you brought a lot of questions because we do have a room full of energy nerds here who are really excited to help you with those questions and to see if this is right for you. My name is Nicole Card. I'm the sustainability specialist for Oakland County. And I'm just going to do a brief introduction to our big why. So why we think solar is valuable for the community and also why we partnered with GLREA to bring Solarize as a program to Oakland County. So the first and foremost reason is to address rising energy costs. As Lexi showed in one of her last slides, even before the current, oil price increase and before the increase in data centers being built throughout Michigan, energy prices have been rising for decades and at a rate that's much higher than inflation. So solar is one of the tools we have to lower energy prices. Another thing we know is that the energy grid in this area is getting quite old and it's also vulnerable to power outages. So having solar in addition to battery storage can increase the community's resilience to both of these issues. But even without having battery storage, solar produces a lot of energy during what is the peak energy use time. And that reduces strain on the grid and benefits everyone in the community, not just folks who have solar. Another thing we love about the Solarize program specifically is that it's a great way to connect with your community. So everyone who's in this room right now is your neighbor who you have at least one thing in common with. So we really encourage you to take some time after the session to introduce yourself to a few people and just ask for their thoughts, share your thoughts about what you learned today. And last but not least, we are excited to facilitate upgrades to our energy system that will reduce carbon pollution. I don't know if you guys are hearing the feedback, but I am. But we know that carbon pollution is harmful to both our human physical health and to the environmental health. So that is another reason that we're happy to promote solar. I also wanted to briefly share that Oakland County is on a solar journey of our own right now. We have a 57 kilowatt solar array on one of our sheriff's buildings, and we are also working with a larger solar project out in Hart, Michigan, which is just wrapping up construction. And starting in June of this year, we'll be providing about 65% of the energy use on our campus. All right, and the last thing I want to talk about is the food. So we have some catering from a lovely local restaurant called Los Gatos Tacos. And we try and make all of our events as low waste as possible. So with that in mind, all of the cups, plates, and silverware are compostable. And we have a little compost bin by the doors that you entered in. It's to the right, it's got the orange bag and the green sign that says compost. So any of the cups and plates or any food that you don't finish can all go into there. And there's also recycling available if you brought any water bottles or something like that, and trash for anything that can't be recycled. And with that, I just want to say thank you again for coming, and I believe I'm going to pass it back to Lexi to MC us.
Thank you so much, Nicole. We have been very privileged to be working with the Oakland County Sustainability Team and Commissioner Dave Woodward, who helped get this event started. Next up, I'd like to welcome Mason Christerfield with the 2030 District to walk you through some of the financial aspects of going solar for either a commercial or nonprofit entity.
Slide answer. I just completely forgot about it. So if you want to use this, you can.
Thank you, Lexi. And thanks to GLREA for having us, our partners, and Oakland County and our solar installer as well, Brandon, for being here. So my name is Mason Christerfield. I am the building data analyst for the Detroit 2030 District. So a little bit about the Detroit 2030 District. We are a nonprofit that works in partnership with public and private organizations to decarbonize the built environment. So one of the ways we're doing that is through benchmarking. We find that that's one of the most effective ways to get started. We determined that it's hard to change what you don't measure. So benchmarking has been one of our programs that helps us understand where buildings are at in their carbon journey. So today, I'm here to talk a little bit about elective pay. This will be very quick. If you have any questions afterward, please, get in touch with me or Peggy Maddox. We are the elective pay ambassadors. Unfortunately, elective pay isn't the most straightforward issue, but we'll run through it pretty quickly here. So elective pay is the tax credit that's available for tax exempt entities. If you're not a tax exempt entity, this is the same tax credit, the investment tax credit that you get for installing a clean energy project. So when I say a tax exempt entity, I'm talking about schools, I'm talking about nonprofits, I'm talking about local government, and houses of worship. So again, myself and Peggy Maddox, we are the elective pay ambassadors through the MyoTech program, and we serve Region 10. So that's Oakland County, Wayne County, and Macomb County. So this program, the elective pay program, the elective pay ambassador program is through the MyoTech. This is a MyoTech program. And when I say elective pay, and the tax credit you get back, that's usually uncapped and it's 30% of your project. 30% of your project costs you will be able to get back in a direct cash payment. So even as a tax exempt entity, it doesn't matter that if you don't have a tax liability, this money comes back to you in a direct cash payment. So there are a few different clean energy projects that qualify, but specifically we're talking about your solar and your battery storage for when we talk about the Solarize. Things that's not included, energy efficiency, air source heat pumps. Again, it's quite a few. There's other things that are included, EVs expired, EV chargers, geothermal, but again, kind of running through this real quick. So if you have any questions, please ask me afterwards. Want to give you enough time to hear from your solar installer. So the process is relatively straightforward to apply. It starts when you place your project in service. Then you have to pre-file, you file your actual taxes, and then 45 days to 6 weeks later, you get your money back. If the IRS is late with that for any reason, it does accumulate interest. And while elective pay starts after your project is placed in service, we as elective pay ambassadors are here even at the idea stage. So if you have an idea, please reach out to us. We can help you find funding, understand how to work with grants, things of that nature. There are some important dates to point out. Pretty much for solar, the tax credits are expiring next year, the end of next year. You have to complete your project and have it in service by the end of next year. If you have a large project that may take longer than that, we suggest that you get your project started before July 4th of this year. What qualifies as start of construction, getting your project started, is to incur 5% of your project costs. That will qualify for getting your project started. If you do that, you have 4 years to complete it. Energy storage, if you pair that up with your solar, energy storage fortunately does not expire until 2032. So you have quite a bit more time to still claim your tax credit for that. The biggest thing I want to point out is prohibited foreign entity rules. Those rules got instated the beginning of this year. So pretty much if you don't comply with the prohibited foreign entity rules, you will not be able to claim a tax credit at all. The prohibited foreign entity rules state that there are certain countries, China, Iran, Russia, North Korea, that a percentage of your materials can't come from. So it is very complex, very convoluted, but we as elective pay ambassadors help you figure that out. We understand where your materials are coming from, who owns the company that the materials come from, and we'll make sure that if we're giving you the best suggestion to make sure you're compliant with the tax credit. And the last thing I want to cover is braided funds. So pretty much this in a nutshell that says if your project is fully covered by a grant, then you won't qualify for any elective pay. You can't have an access benefit. And if you do, if your project is covered partially by a grant, then it will lower the amount that you would get back for elective pay. Again, if you have any questions on this, please, ask at the end. I'm more than willing to break that down a little bit further. There are quite a few financing options out there. The Michigan Climate Investment Hub is looking for projects more on a bigger scale. We have Michigan Saves. Michigan Saves has a great program for the bridge loan. If you need money to get your project started, we calculate how much you'll get back at the end of for your tax credit, and they will loan you that money up front. We have Solar Faithful. They're not up here, but they're another organization. Revolve. We have quite a few that will help you with your financing. So please reach out to us if you have any questions, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mason. I just want to reiterate that the 2030 district and our elected pay masters are wonderful resources, definitely experts. Going solar is pretty much always a great financial option, and there are some incentives to make it an even better equation. So we don't want you to miss out on those. Another great part about our presentation is that we have someone here to talk about their experience going solar. So Paul, I'd like to invite you up to talk about this beautiful development on the synagogue.
Thank you, Lacey.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Would you like a microphone or you're just gonna project? No worries.
I can't say that I talk to you loud. My name is Paul Goldsmith, born and raised in Detroit. I'm an architect by profession, and somehow I got involved in sustainability while going to school at Lawrence Tech. You can go to Lawrence Tech now and see a couple of projects that were green from the beginning. I was one of the few people in the city of Detroit that got together with Ford Motor Car Company, and there's a couple of you sitting in this room, and we created the USGBC chapter, United States Green Building Council, and a couple of us in this room have our lead AP, which is accredited professional. We can help people design the buildings to that. I've been involved in about 45 lead projects over the years, including my last one before I retired was down at Wayne State University. The biomedical research facility was my last lead project before I retired a number of years ago. And I've been involved in green building for a long time. I built a house in 1981 where I had solar panels on the roof heating hot water, and I was one of the first around and published in the newspaper, and that was the start of my career in being green, and I continue to do that after retirement. The project you see before you is a facility that we built as part of our green team. We've got a very proactive green team from a sustainable point of view and landscaping and planning. And I always wanted to get some solar projects at the synagogue. So we built a pavilion that's used in the summertime for classes and services on Friday night, and we needed to power it. So we were going to hook the building, dig up the lot, connect from the building and do that. But I said, why do that? Let's get a small solar array and one of the new compact inverter storage batteries and do that. We got the board to approve it. So that's what it's all about. Oh, I got to push the button to change, right? Is this the thing?
Yeah, sorry.
Huh?
I think that's our only slide for.
That's the only slide?
Yeah.
Oh my God. If I wanted to show you the whole process. The pavilion was built in 2.5 days by 4 Amish carpenters from Pennsylvania. It was finished in the summer and we didn't do anything with it and finally got approval put up the solar panels. And then in 2 days and a half, we put up the 8 solar panels, and I had a picture of the storage unit, a Jackery unit. And the project cost about $24,837.48. I don't like to be exact. And Peggy Matta, who you've seen from Oakland County and helping us serve, is running us through the process of getting our money back. We've been going through the hoops and the elements of trying to figure it out, but we're almost there. And we filed everything, and we're going to get our money back in 2027, right? So we're in the process. So the solar panels really supply 2 things: the lighting, fluorescent lighting that we put up simultaneously with that, and the sound system that's put in there. And so therefore, we didn't have to dig up the property. It's completely self-sufficient. And it is the first step in a number of potential projects at the synagogue. We're redoing our front entrance, and when the building was built in 1972, and it never had any handicapped access through the main stairs coming up, but we've built an entrance on the other side where people park. It's a longer distance, but to get closer, we're putting in a ramp. And my next brainchild, if it works, is to take the 8 panels and add a few to it and make a snow melt system to melt the ramp and keep it clean. And I'm working with our solar supplier and getting the mechanics of doing that. That's really quick. I had a couple other more detailed photographs of showing the lighting and the Jackery unit, but it's a right thing to do. All right.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry we didn't get those photos in there. Maybe when we have our break, we can try to project them from your computer. But thank you again. Always great to hear a solar success story. And next, I'll be passing it off to Brandon Knight with Strategy, one of our trusted solar installers. I will also just mention that GLREA has quite a process for vetting our solar installers. They must be approved with Michigan Saves and then also be a member of ours. So Synergy is one of those that we've worked with quite a bit in the past, and we can promise you that Brandon and the Synergy team will give a great solar experience. So here you go.
Sure. Yeah, I was working out today. I got rained on, so. For today, yeah, we're actually based down the road, Catherine Industrial Drive. So it's like a 5-minute ride over here once I picked up our stuff, so. I personally worked in the solar industry. I know a lot of people here, going like professionally since 2012, and I was climate activist before that, and worked a lot with building coalitions and networks and what we were calling the youth climate movement back then. So things really come in full circle. So that's really impressive. How long did it take for the Green Committee to, like, from project conception to installation? How long did the process take?
It was pretty straightforward. We had a lot of members that were proactive with it. Once we got the dollar value and we knew that we would get some rebate, it was pretty easy. Because we would have a very progressive and active green team at our synagogue.
How is the so I see it's on a pavilion structure that's like, how is the tie-in to your electric service? How did that go?
It's freestanding.
Freestanding, off grid?
Off the grid.
Okay. Cool.
And
That's awesome.
Eventually, when we start putting more up on the building, to expand the system for the overall building, but it's now freestanding.
Okay, so just to clarify, he's mentioning that the pavilion project is actually off grid. So and talk a little bit about grid tied solar first. So which is the main focus of the Solarize program, and then we have like additions to that. So we're a solar developer, and companies like us, essentially, we're looking for turnkey projects where you hire us to do the design, do the engineering, do the procurement of the materials, We come install it, we pull the permits, we work with DTE on your interconnection application. And you pretty much do nothing but pay us. So there's a lot of groups like us that are out here and we're very hungry, and to get projects and to deploy solar. And we know that this is usually a financial decision for a company or a nonprofit or a government to save money on your electric bill. So we have and I don't know if John talked at all or yet, but just to clarify with DTE going into this, so we're all on the same page, but they have the distributed generation program. So we can design grid tied systems up to 110% of your consumption profile for the past year. So that's kind of the limit of what we can propose. And then, we're usually looking at you exporting a certain amount of power, where the solar array is actually, and I know some people might be wavy on this, but the solar array is actually producing way more power than the building is using. And you're banking these excess kilowatt hours as the utility sees this come through the meter. And then at the end of the month, this is calculating whatever's left over. If you have leftover, you have an excess generation bank that kicks credits into the next month. When you redeem the credits that month, the credits are only being applied to the supply, or you're only getting credited for the supply side of your bill. So there's supply and distribution. So when you export power back, they don't give you the distribution rate. So you get about 60 to 70 cents on the dollar when you export back to them. Okay. So we're trying to present solutions that factor in that policy as number one thing, as it usually comes down to the financial bottom line. I'm definitely find people that are motivated by the environmental reasons, but oftentimes when it comes down to a family or business making a decision on it, it's strictly financial. So that's what the majority of projects from a financial perspective are relying on the utility policy for some sort of exchange coming back to them. And then you're also consuming a lot of the power on site though. So when you consume the power on site, you are essentially blocking the utility from coming in. So to me, you're getting the full utility rate of that kilowatt hour compared to what the utility would charge you. So solar is often a avoided cost calculation. So where you're avoiding this cost from the utility, and that's creating the value, on paper of what the solar array can do. Let's see. We have been around since 2010. We've been in Novi the whole time. Prasad, the owner, he also lives in Novi. And the company started when he decided to put a solar array on his home, and he built the business out from there. So we do a lot of, I would call them custom projects. So usually we have like an inquiry come into us. A lot of times we'll vet that opportunity. We'll see how complex it is, and it will move from there. So if you're looking for a basic solar array proposal, we want your utility bill, and we're going to use a simulation software to create a solar array on your building. And we're also going to upload the utility bill information into our simulation software. And then we're going to create a system, and we'll be putting, we're projecting solar arrays onto this building or onto a ground mount. And essentially we're trying to determine like where that 100% offset is at of you are producing as much solar power on your building as what you are using over the last year. Because I want to get that framework to get you to like a net zero scenario. So when we start talking, that might not be what you ultimately go with, but I want to know what that is. I want to know what the max solar array size is for your building. And when that comes down to how DTE is going to bill, the closer you go to 100 or 110%, the more you're going to have excess generation going back to DTE. So while you can have potentially the lowest utility bill with a 100 to 110% solar array, technically your return on investment might be in a sweet spot, like a 60 to 70% offset, so that you are not exporting all that back to the utility. I'm motivated to get as many solar panels out as possible, but just want to be transparent about how that will affect you. And so we can have an honest conversation too. The solar systems have gotten more complex, and we do a lot of EV charging stations, integrating generators, integrating battery banks, sometimes fully integrated systems where all of these components are part of the system. So on like a commercial project, usually I'll need to do a site visit. Commercial electrical systems are generally pretty complex for the most part, or there'll be like a giant distribution cabinet, the meters somewhere randomly, and we need that information so that we can accurately price out the electrical. So we're not running wiring all over the building inefficiently. So a good, clean electric design usually requires a site visit. So it's going to be a combination of you sending us your utility bill, we're jumping on our software, we're engaging with you, hopefully through a couple phone calls, so we're getting on the same page, going through your goals. Ultimately, a site visit, and then we're going to come to you with a full proposal to do a project at your building. And yeah, we've done quite a bit in Oakland County and throughout Michigan and beyond Michigan too. One building you might see a lot is the 1-800 Law Firm building on Southfield Freeway. They have like some wind turbines on top, so those are projects. Okay. So generally, we've talked a lot about the economics. The 2030 district presentation is really good. So as we're collaborating with you and these tax credits need to get processed and everything like that, that's an amazing resource. How you've broken all that down. So you've got it way broken down more than I do. So, but essentially, federal government changed their policy over the past year and a half, and it sucks, but we're going to change it, right? Oh, geez, right?
Still got energized.
We're getting into that part. But yeah, the policy sucks right now, but for commercial, it's still there. So we're just done. So all of our proposals is pretty much off the bat in the solar industry. You're starting with a 30% federal tax credit. Then you can depreciate the asset. That can be really beneficial for businesses too, but you are moving all the depreciation up. So you do not get that depreciation later, but essentially you can bring a 25-year project timeline's depreciation into 5 years. So those are the big driving incentives for commercial. So it can end up being like 55% of your project could be paid through tax credits. So there's a big technical aspect, love design. There's all the different ways to put up panels. Like this is a ballasted system we're showing. That's in Bloomfield Hills. I forget what church it's at. But on a flat roof, we oftentimes use like concrete blocks in a flat racking system that's tilted at like 5 to 10 degrees, and there's some space between the panels. So not most, but a lot of commercial buildings are flat roofs. So you'll see this style of solar array oftentimes. So if it's an asphalt roof, we're gonna have some penetrations on that roof, and we're gonna be putting attachments all over it. And then we're gonna run rail, ground mounts, carports. Love all that stuff. That's the solar design. I'm big on the electrical design. I have a background in like hybrid systems and microgrids, and was able to travel a lot doing those types of systems. So I've been very impressed with Michigan residents' willingness to invest in this stuff, and the solar battery technology has improved so much, and there's so many great products out now over like the last 4 or 5 years. So it's exciting times. A lot of those products are kind of based on 200 amp single phase setup. So when we get into commercial for battery backup, it can be a little more complex, just so you know. And we also got to figure out like where we're going to isolate your building at to go into backup mode. And I love this stuff. So hopefully we get a lot of inquiries and we can dig into some creative solar battery systems. Yeah, so there's other groups like us, other events going on. We'd love to work with you. We have capacity, and that's pretty much all I got. Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Brandon. And I know this was a lot of content, so we will be sure to get these slides out to you. And also happy to meet one-on-one with, Brandon or myself or anyone else in the program if you have, a pretty complex system or just want to talk it through some more. I do want to highlight these pictures that Synergy has, just some cool different options for solar. As he mentioned, it can look really different depending on your facility, your needs for your organization or business, and Synergy can do a lot to customize that. More pictures, very nice. And yeah, some residential ones too, which we will have a separate presentation on in a little bit. Did you want to talk through any of these? Are we good?
We did go through the those. I'm done. I think we're
Cool.
yeah.
Just wanted to make sure. So I'm going to close us out here with a few technical aspects of our timeline and discount, and then we'll switch to a question and answer session. So essentially we have 5% off guaranteed on your installation just for attending. We're really grateful that you guys wanted to come here and learn about solar and, start the Solarize journey. We then have 1% additional off for every contract signed, and I'll go to the timeline next to explain how exactly that works. But then that goes up to 15% off the installation cost for 15 contracts signed. The timeline right here, and I'm so sorry, that slide needs to be fixed, but you can request a free quote within a 2-week time period by emailing Brandon, and I will make sure his email is sent out to everyone. That quote is entirely free, and as he described, kind of an estimate of what that'll look like for your system. Then they have 3 weeks to provide your quote, at which point you can make your decision on if it works for you and if you'd like to pursue the process. So just to reiterate, you have 2 weeks, that's May 13th, to request your quote. And then you should receive your estimate by June 3rd. And then because we know it's a pretty lengthy process, probably a lot of board meetings, financial decisions, and your organization's other needs, we give you until October 3rd to sign that contract. However, I do want to mention, and I think the 2030 district did talk this through a little bit, there is an option to safe harbor your tax credit. And that is essentially if you have a very large project, you're expecting it to be over 1.5 megawatts. And this may be the case for your organization, it's probably not super likely, but if you're not sure about whether or not this will apply to you, please talk to myself and or your installer or Mason and Peggy with the 2030 district to help figure that out. Essentially, as Brandon mentioned, the federal tax credits did change recently, and if you do have a large project, it is better to begin construction by July 4th of this year, just to allow you a full 4-year time period to access those tax credits by placing the project in service. For most of you, though, it just has to be done by the end of 2027, and we can definitely do that for you. So with that, I will turn it over to questions.
I have
Yeah.
a question just to clarify, the 5% to 15% discount is qualified for this event and separate from the tax credit, right?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Nicole. Yes. Yes.
So this is for Brandon. What does weather do to some of those panels? Hail, wind, tornadoes, all that fun stuff.
Well, some of this hail has been pretty bad, so I've seen some bad hail, but I've also seen all the solar panel manufacturers. Proudly egotistically show like videos where they just throw all this stuff at the panel. So, okay, it's tempered glass like the car windshield. So really shouldn't break from like a tree branch type situation. But yeah, they're pretty robust. So, yeah, the failure points oftentimes are like wiring junction boxes, the power electronics, and then a significant act. But I have seen some videos like from the hail going on in Texas and Florida. Some of the stuff I've seen solar panels get broken by hail. I've had some customers that have claimed it up here, and I do wonder when you are mounting the panels, if they're not mounted correctly and they're loose, potentially that comes it. So, but I don't like to be the person that just says there's no problems, you're never gonna, that's not been my experience. So, sometimes systems work perfectly, but oftentimes the failure points are the power electronics. Those are usually under warranty, but oftentimes we'll have to go to the site as the installer and diagnose that issue. So that can be frustrating, but seeing the quality improve dramatically, even the last couple of years, some of the products that are out, and particularly the energy storage systems, have, some of them are very rock solid now. So, but you're looking at like one way to look at this is you're buying a 25-year power plant. Like you're buying, like if you were to put cash into the system, you are getting a warranted system for 25 years. It should last longer than that, but you're paying for all that upfront as opposed to, buying power every month. You're just getting it all at once for the next 25 years. So it's all warranted 25 years usually.
Yeah, good question. I'll also just add, while the warranty is 25 years, we're seeing solar panels last way longer than that. I think I saw a 70-year-old solar panel that was still working recently. So that might be a little bit of an overestimate, but definitely 30, maybe to 40. Yeah, was there a question?
Yeah, excuse me, I have a question about the financing. So if you're working with a nonprofit who does not have the ability to say, come up with a chunk of change to get this project started, how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely a situation that a lot of our nonprofits are experiencing and working with. We did highlight a couple of financial options from Michigan Saves, which is a really strong option. We also have, not to jump the gun, but our next Solarize will be introducing a power purchase agreement option where we can work with you and another organization that is called Revolve to provide some of that financing, and then essentially it will benefit your organization without the upfront cost up until a point of transfer of ownership, which will be for a nonprofit about 20 years into the process. But we do have quite a variety of different ways to work with you on that. So please do reach out and we can figure out what would work best for the nonprofit, since it is highly specific. Yes, and really quick, Peggy.
Yeah, and for Michigan Saves as a bridge loan to help you, if you're gonna get money back, you don't have enough money up front, then they'll give you a bridge loan with no. There's interest.
They'll re-amortize.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
It's gonna.
and until you get your check back. They also have loans. They also have loans to give you for your project too. And other places like Revolve can do that too.
So we didn't talk about those structures, but power purchase agreement is going to be third-party ownership. So when you do third-party ownership, you're not outright owning the system. So the largest benefit to your organization or company is going to be if you can own this thing outright. We're happy to own it. and do a power purchase agreement, and we'll put up everything, and you'll get probably 10% off your electric bill, and you'll have solar panels, and we do a lot of that. But it's a completely different model. So if you want to do things like have like resiliency and autonomy and certain things like that, you might be looking to own your power. So just gonna mention that. So there's a big difference. A power purchase agreement is third-party ownership. I'm getting in with some of these folks, so I need to see what is available. I know that there are options to flip the asset in the timeline to the host site after the tax stuff has been basically pulled out of the project by the private entities.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. So I'll just summarize really quickly. Plan A is if you can provide the cash up front. Plan B is to secure financing through Michigan Saves or another loan provider. And then Plan C would be something like that, power purchase agreements. Yeah, was there a question?
I was just gonna say, I'm in the industry myself for sustainability financing, and what's often not mentioned is for larger solar projects, there's also a state law called CPACE, Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy. And that the benefits of CPACE is, while it is a loan, usually you can get it for zero down, up to 3 years, no payments, and up to 25 years amortized payments. So it's much more palatable. And on certain size solar, let's say 100,000, 150,000 or more, a lot of these projects are basically net zero. So you're getting more in savings each year than you're paying on the loan. So most people aren't aware of CPACE. We've only done about 125 projects with the state law, but that's another option. And that is when you own the system.
How many states in the United States have that law passed?
Yeah, Michigan has had it since 2010, and there's 41 other states that have it now. So it's just another way to try and finance renewable energy.
I like how the green committees, and if you look at the tax credit situation, if you notice, there's 5% needing to be invested by July 4th. So that might be one thing too for organizations, that you don't got to get the whole thing raised. But if we do a design proposal, come up with the project's going to be, if you could raise 5% by July 4th, then that has some beneficial tax incentives where you're going to basically reserve your spot. We got a runtime to get the install done. That also gives time to, for like a place of worship to do a capital campaign or something like that, to raise the money for it.
Yeah, Julie. I'm just gonna make one comment about Michigan Saves. Michigan Saves is the first green bank in the nation. They are a nonprofit. And so they're here, they were created by Governor Granholm to help make these energy efficiency programs and renewable energy programs happen by making access to money easier and less expensive.
And that would give them the ability to own outright.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah, but a question for Oakland County. I was curious in how just the solar programs or the solar projects you guys are working on, like how that was like paid for, and like just the kind of like justification you were able to like have for that. I just wonder if, like, from the city perspective too, like how can we try to justify that? Like what's the sort of like turnaround time for having a project like pay for itself?
So we have two solar situations that are going on. We put on-site solar on the sheriff's building, like you saw in the picture. And that was part of our capital improvements based on work with the goals for sustainability forward. That project was in place before I got there, so I don't know how the conversation went relative to the ROI. But we did
pay for it up to 15 years.
Okay, great. So we also applied for elective pay for that project and earned the 30% off. That makes a huge difference. It shortens up the ROI time substantially, of course. And so that is one of them. And then the other project, is that the one you were talking about? Our actual on-site solar?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
other
just,
one is we're buying offsets
Hmm.
from some company, a company that builds, or is building, 1 megawatt, no, 100 megawatts, sorry. 100 megawatt farm. We're getting 100% of our, third-party electrical accounts covered by that, which equates to 65% of Oakland County's electrical capacity being offset by those solar panels. And that was, just out of luck that we had the opportunity to sign a contract, I think in 2022. And it is coming online this year, June 1st.
And if I can add, for your question about the on-site solar, I think part of the reason they were able to justify that, they were retrofitting the building to be much more energy intensive than it used to be with the new equipment that was going to be in there, including I think a lot of refrigeration and chilling. So that was a reason for them to be like, we don't want to increase our energy bill significantly. So they were able to get the solar installation as part of that retrofit.
And just to add on to that, from a sustainability point of view, if you're looking into solar and other sustainable energy provision kind of units, you want to look at the whole facility because there's a lot of other things that you can do in your building to get it more efficient. And our synagogue, a few years ago, through rebates through Detroit Edison, we first took every lamp and bulb in the building and changed it to LED. We saved tens of thousands of dollars in reducing our consumption. And then we took our 1972 vintage air conditioning and updated it to brand new chillers and boilers. We had 2 giant 3.5 million BTU boilers that sat on big pads. Then we ended up with 3 small little condensing boilers that sit on one pad and produce as much, if not more energy, more efficiently. Therefore, you reduce your energy consumption. Then you start adding on the solar panels on those sources, and therefore you're getting a win-win situation if you manage it correctly. And with a team like you can bring with this, a supplier like that with the experience, then you've got A and B, and then you really get the return on investment comes much quicker.
Yeah, and Matt, one thing just to add, resiliency for some of the municipal buildings
Mhm.
is one of the arguments, right? So if we're thinking of a fire station, often, a fire station and other emergency people are coming out when there is an emergency. And given that we're having many more blackouts with, the power grid going down, they would be called on, right? And so to be able to have their own source of power, I think that would be a good argument.
yeah, it's a great point.
And let's not forget the chart that we initially saw where DTE and consumers are raising their rates every year above inflation. So when you build your own solar system, you're taking control of your energy expenditures and your rate will be flat. Whereas your neighbors, they're gonna go up every year. So if you have to be accountable to taxpayers or your congregants or your nonprofit board, if you can show how you're gonna save money over the 25 years that Lexi mentioned, then that really pencils out as a great investment to make.
Yeah, thank you guys for all those wonderful points. I know we have a question over there, so go ahead.
So you say construction needs to be started by July 4th this year. It's a new construction, so Novi is doing a new public safety headquarters into the police fire combination and 2 fire stations. They're not gonna be in service, or probably the ground won't be broken. I'm not sure exactly what their time frame is on it. But if we're in design process and does that count as part of construction?
That's a great question, and I can definitely let Strategy answer this, but the federal guidance right now is at 5% is what marks the documented start of construction. And that can be in a couple of different ways, which we can definitely get into depending on that project in particular. It can either be financial investment or like a marked beginning of construction, such as breaking the ground. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You up to it.
Oh. So yeah, when we say start of construction, design does, count for that.
Okay.
It's the 5% of the cost of your total projects. But one of the things that we advise is if you can, try to aim closer to 10%, because it is the total cost of the project.
So if you only allocated 5% and the project cost was higher than initially anticipated, then it may not qualify for starter construction anymore.
Okay.
So design does count, but if you can, try to go for 10.
Okay.
And if it's over a megawatt or more, megawatt, you have to have an actual construction, but if it's less than that, 1 megawatt?
Yeah, megawatt.
Yeah,
1.5.
1.5, if it's over 1.5, which it probably is, and it's just not a building.
Four buildings and.
Okay, well, if it's a project over 1.5, then you have to have actual, shovels in the ground, things starting to build. If it's under that, then all you need to do is show that you've paid out money to the design engineer, the solar designer, or the contractors. And you've gotten that started, you have an invoice that you have for that before July.
Talk with our instructions. Rep, and see where we're at.
And
Talk to you guys.
we're here to help you out.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is Oakland County. Are you also doing any of this work in Wayne County? I'm from school practice.
Funny you mentioned that. We did a program last night in Wayne County, which you are still definitely eligible to participate in if you would like to. Actually, Brandon was also the installer for last night's event, so feel free to ask him any questions, ask myself any questions. Let's make sure we get you in with that group by discount. Yeah. Of course. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you guys so much for being here tonight. I hope you've gotten some helpful information about solar, and I hope it'll work out for your business, nonprofit, place of worship, school, local government, or other facility. Again, please feel free to reach out with any questions.